What's wrong with her?
I'm not sure, but she won't wake up.
I'm Sadie Guinness, and I'm going to break down everything that happened in Legacies Season 2 so far and explain where the CW series might go from here. Production on the second season of the Vampire Diaries spinoff was suspended in March amid the coronavirus outbreak. As a result, episode 16, which saw Hope journey into Josie's subconscious, was the last episode to air at this time, and there's no set information right now about when the series might return.
I don't know what to do with that.
Creator Julie Plec had tweeted earlier this month that episode 16 was the last episode they had completed prior to the shutdown, adding that the episode's cliffhanger could make it a fun accidental season finale if it needed to be until they could resume production on the show's final episodes.
I don't know where the story goes from there.
However, episode 16 is not going to be the season 2 finale. The current plan is for Legacies to return to finish out the season once production can resume later this year. Of course, that could be in 1 month, 2, 3, or even more. There really is no way of knowing. We might be getting new episodes of Legacies this summer, or perhaps even getting the rest of season 2 in the fall when we typically be gearing up for season 3. But while it's unlikely that we're going to find out what's next for Hope, Landon, and the others for quite some time now, this episode gave us a ton to think about over this hiatus, regardless of how long it lasts. Let's get into all of that now, starting with the rise and supposed fall of Dark Josie. When my boyfriend Clark had infiltrated the Salvatore school, he had encouraged Josie to start using black magic and to channel it into the Mora Miserium, which I think I said right. But after having a vision of her future self destroying the Salvatore school, Josie recruits Hope and others' help to stop her from going full Dark Willow and prevent the Mora Miserium from breaking, which would release all the black magic everywhere and be a disaster. They were going to put it in a prison world, but all of this precaution proved to be useless after Alyssa Chang traps Josie, Lizzie, and Alaric in the prison world that they had put Kai in. Alyssa did this as a Can you hear Rory panting?
I can't.
So this is my dog. If you hear any heavy breathing or weird noises, it's her. After Josie and her delightfully evil Uncle Kai take turns betraying each other a bunch in the prison world, with him eventually escaping through the Malivore pit. Rory, drop! I don't know what she ate. Josie realizes that the only way her family's going to be able to get out of the prison world is by breaking the Mora Miserium and absorbing all of that black magic into her. Thanks to taking this huge risk and pretty major sacrifice, Josie is able to get everyone out of the prison world except for the sexy vampire Sebastian, who had to stay back as an anchor. And we knew Josie had carried some residual black magic in her into the real world, but it seemed like she was still the Josie we knew and loved. At least she did until they went into the noir simulation.
We both knew it would come to this.
Not only did everyone realize Dark Josie was still around, but she was a full-blown supervillain.
A 10.
After busting out of her prison cell in spectacular fashion, Dark Josie returns to the Salvatore school and reveals her master plan to merge with Lizzie on their 17th birthday. Wow, it's so weird filming with you and having you not be like, Sadie, your hair, your hair, your hair. In order to force Lizzie into performing the Gemini Coven ceremony with her, Josie kills Alyssa Chang and threatens to start killing Lizzie's actual friends if she doesn't comply. But fortunately for her, Hope, MG, and Landon come up with a pretty ingenious plan to save both Saltzman twins.
You're late to your own funeral.
Lizzie and Josie do go through with the merge ceremony, but because Hope had linked Lizzie and Landon's lives together, when Lizzie died, she was resurrected when Landon was. That's a good loophole. The show's good with loopholes. And when Josie was left temporarily unconscious after the ceremony, MG was able to send Hope into Josie's mind, where she could hopefully rescue the real Josie from this dark force. Hope is joined in Josie's fairy tale mind by one of the three little pigs, who is actually a pig.
Shut your pie hole, lady.
Making crude and sexist remarks whenever he can. The pig explains that Princess Josie, as he calls her, had put a sleeping curse on herself to stop the darkness from growing since it feeds off her magic. While most of what the pig says is true, he did leave one important thing out.
I was the pig?
Did not see that reveal coming. It turns out Josie had disguised herself as one of the three little pigs in the hopes of keeping the darkness off of her trail. Once the truth is out in the open, Hope pleads with Josie to realize that she's actually way stronger than she realizes, and that she can just choose to tell herself a different story, rather than this outdated fairy tale where powerful women are villains and nice women are weak. But before Hope's pep talk has time to sink in, Dark Josie, in full up evil queen regalia, interrupts, fights with Hope, and turns her into stone. F***ing wild. And then Josie just runs. But when Dark Josie catches up to her, Josie realizes that Hope is right and she is way stronger than she thought. Finally realizing that she is in control of her own destiny, Josie embraces her power, completely changes the narrative, and finally defeats the darkness. But that isn't actually how Josie got the black magic out of her. You see, Dark Josie wasn't working alone. She had actually teamed up with the other big bad of this season, the Necromancer. After killing Clark, the Necromancer used his body to open up a new pit to Malivore, telling the monsters that came out of it to bring him things like Pothos's golden arrow. As for why the necromancer would want to open up a new pit to Malivore after he was like trapped inside of it for pretty much eternity, it turns out that his master plan is to raise Malivore and then turn him into one of his puppets. Talk about the ego on that guy, right? Dark Josie rightfully points out that this is a big risk, given if Malivore gets a hold of Landon's body, he would basically be invincible. But that's where Raphael comes in. We had known for a while that some bad things had gone down with Raphael since his time with his dad, seeing as his friends found him tied up in an abandoned trailer, he was having visions of the necromancer, and then his trigger word in the noir world literally translated to death. That's why we were not surprised to find out that the necromancer had actually killed Raphael and turned him into one of his puppets, but I was pretty shocked when the necromancer then forced Raphael to kill Landon with a golden arrow, thus fulfilling the Sphinx's prophecy and seemingly clearing the way for the necromancer and Dark Josie to raise Malivore safely. What the necromancer didn't take into account, though, was just how powerful Dark Josie actually is. Not liking having to take orders from Dark Josie, the necromancer sets up a double cross and proposes a deal to Alaric. He would give Raphael and Alyssa their lives back in exchange for Alaric getting the black magic out of Josie and into the necromancer. It is a pretty shitty and dangerous deal, but once the necromancer says he can also raise Landon, Alaric agreed and he and Lizzie go through with the spell. The black magic leaves Josie and goes into the necromancer, and Josie seems like she's back to her old self, but still being so traumatized after everything she went through, completely understandably, Josie decides to transfer her siphon power into a coin until she's ready to use it again. But it turns out the necromancer's double cross was actually a triple cross because Landon remained dead even after Raphael and Alyssa were given their lives back. Because Alaric and the necromancer had done an unbreakable covenant spell as part of this deal, this shouldn't be possible. But that's why it is so important when you're making a deal with a demon to pay very close attention to wording and semantics. Raphael asked the necromancer,
Can you bring back Landon too?
not if he would. And so that could provide an easy loophole for the necromancer to have left Landon out of that deal, thus paving the way for him to get his black magic without risking Malivore getting his vessel. But that wasn't the only big problem the Super Squad was left to deal with by the end of this episode. First, Landon had failed to resurrect, and then Hope failed to wake up after her trip into Josie's mind, and no one seemed to know why. Could this be as simple as the fact that she was literally turned to stone in Josie's subconscious and therefore couldn't extract herself? But if that's the case, then why couldn't Josie go into her own mind and save Hope? This whole situation is so weird, and it's making me a little suspicious that even though Josie has that black magic out of her, we might not have seen the last of Dark Josie or dubious intentions Josie yet. As much as I want Josie to be back to her old self, it is possible that she purposely left Hope trapped in her mind or even transferred Hope into that coin when she did that spell. Either way, the Super Squad needs to figure out what is going on with Hope as soon as possible because the necromancer is more powerful than ever, and it would be extremely helpful to have a tribrid around to fight Malivore. While we're sure Hope is going to come back one way or another, there's still a lot of mystery surrounding Landon. So is he really dead? Absolutely fucking not. Or at least if Landon is dead, he is not going to stay that way forever.
I can't see them killing off anybody, really.
So that's a huge issue I actually have with Legacies is they need to kill a main character. Make my heart break. A lot of season 2 saw Landon exploring what it means to be a phoenix and how he could go from a sidekick or a dude in distress to an actual hero. But before Landon ever really got to explore what he could do with these new powers, he was felled by that gosh darn goddammit golden arrow.
I don't think we should ever say gosh darn.
I know. So while I think, Landon is dead technically right now, I still think he's just gonna resurrect but be transformed in the process. If that's the case, when Landon eventually does resurrect, he might be fully in control of his phoenix powers and more powerful than ever, meaning when the necromancer tried to kill Landon, he might have actually just made a more powerful enemy. But another option is that the golden arrow unlocks the side of Landon that is destined to be Malivore's vessel. Next time we see Landon, he could be much more under his father's influence and acting purely on instinct to do his father's bidding, or Landon could become a full-blown villain. Of course, having two of our favorite characters go dark twice in one season would be pretty boring and kind of repetitive, so I don't think that's what's gonna happen. Whatever happens with Landon in the future, it probably will affect his dynamic with Hope. When it wasn't about fighting the Evil Dead or Krampus, this season of Legacies so far also saw a ton of shakeups when it came to relationships at the Salvatore School. Because everyone had temporarily forgotten Hope's existence, Landon and Josie dated for a while before Landon and Hope ultimately got back together, only for Hope to then be riddled with doubt and become convinced that something would always get in between her and Landon. And as if that love triangle was not already complicated enough, Raphael also confessed his feelings for Hope, and Hope confessed that she once had a crush on Josie. This season, Lizzie had a brief fling with the new vampire Sebastian before he forcibly tried to turn her into vampire and make her live in a prison world with him for eternity. MG was still carrying a torch for Lizzie and they even shared a kiss, but he also developed feelings for Caleb's sister Kim. However, the high-stakes Salvatore school lifestyle was too much for Kim to handle, and that relationship never really got off the ground, much to Caleb's pleasure. Meanwhile, Alyssa had a crush on MG, but Caleb and Jed had crushes on Alyssa, even though she was super rude to them.
I have feelings.
Alaric also developed feelings for the new sheriff in town, Mac, but after he told her about the supernatural world, she made it very clear that she would not be following in Sheriff Forbes and Donovan's footsteps and turn a blind eye. Because of that, Alaric had to have Caleb erase Mac's memories, and then we never really saw her again, so we have no idea how that relationship could have progressed after that betrayal. And after Josie freed everyone from Kai's prison world, including the students that Alaric and Emma had exiled there, she and the vampire Jade clearly had a spark and a connection. And hopefully we can see these two pursue an actual relationship, because after everything Josie has been through this season and last season, Josie really deserves some happiness and someone to support her and love her. By the end of this last episode, there really isn't a single couple that is in a super strong place. So I'm sure that whenever Legacies does return, we're going to see even more shakeups, hookups, and heartbreaks. And they also better reveal that Sebastian made it out of the prison world through the Malivore pit, because the Vampire Diaries has conditioned me to want a redemption story from like a sexy vampire with a murder complex and a love of bourbon, and I need to see him again. With Legacy Season 2 on an unexpected and extended hiatus until production can resume on the final 4 episodes, we are left with a lot of questions still unanswered. When the Sphinx appeared in Mystic Falls,
People are usually more impressed.
it shared a very ominous prophecy that did not bode well for our super squad.
There are 2 prisoners. One is the master of his cage. The other returns home without power.
And while most of what the Sphinx meant has now been revealed, by the end of episode 16, we still have no idea what the Sphinx meant when it warned that the greatest destroyer of all is love. But I am pretty positive it's going to be about Hope and Landon. One of Hope's driving struggles this season has been her fear of letting herself love someone because she's afraid that love is just going to turn into loss again. Throughout season 2, Hope was forced into situations where she found herself having to choose between Landon and the greater good. And even when she did choose Landon in the noir world, she wasn't able to get out of the simulation until she chose differently, leading her to believe that her relationship with Landon is ultimately doomed. I'd be pretty shocked if the love the Sphinx was referring to wasn't theirs, but then the question still remains of how this might manifest. Is the prophecy saying that for once, Hope really will choose Landon over the greater good, but come to regret that decision because it like wreaks hell on earth? Or for once, maybe it's not Hope's decision and Landon's the one who has to choose and causes all this destruction. And if Dark Josie really isn't gone yet, maybe her heartbreak over Landon choosing Hope is what causes her to try and kill one or both of them. No matter what this prophecy proves to mean, one thing is clear, that it is not going to go well for our heroes. Can the necromancer just revive anyone?
You're missing the latest twist.
Episode 16 revealed that once you're resurrected by the necromancer, you don't actually have to live your whole life as a zombie puppet forever. He can give you your full life back, which is very interesting because this opens up the possibility that literally any dead character in this universe could be resurrected. This not only means people who have died on Legacies, but people who have died on the Vampire Diaries and the originals too. The problem is that the necromancer would only want to resurrect people who could further his agenda, which really limits it just to the villains. So like, maybe we haven't seen the last of Kai Parker after all? Chris Wood did say he will play Kai until it's no longer possible. Since Hope and Josie did the merge already, are they gonna have to do it again? When Dark Josie announced that she wanted to do the merge with Lizzie on their 17th birthday and still their 22nd, I was pretty confused. Sure, Josie gave that explanation about how doing it earlier was frowned upon but not impossible, but where was the Celestial event? According to everything we previously knew about the merge, it's the power of the Celestial event that allowed the two people to merge as one. Whether there was an eclipse going on that no one talked about or the writers just kind of like conveniently forgot this fact, the fact that no merge actually took place means I am pretty positive that Lizzie and Josie are just gonna have to go through this whole thing again, and probably to a much more disastrous effect if they don't figure out a loophole soon.
The curtains really do tie the room together. Shut up, Chad. You're out of your element.
Can somebody please save Chad? He is such good comic relief, and he is in way over his head. I doubt the necromancer let him free when he did Raphael and Alyssa. So who's gonna save him? I have no theory on this. I just need to put this out there in the world.
Good job, Chad.
There is a theory that Chad is somehow gonna become the new necromancer, but then use those powers to be a do-gooder. Would watch. As of now, we still have no idea when Legacies will return, but if we do have to wait until summer or even fall, that just means we have more time to debate what's really going on with Landon and Hope. Let us know how you think Landon might be changed and why Hope can't wake up in the comments below.